So today I'm going to show you my stamps of Guyana. It's in South America. Most of you probably already know that. And the previous name was British Guiana, and got the independence from the British Empire in 1966 and took the name Guyana. And then became Republic in 1970. And Georgetown is the capital, and they use dollar as a currency. So this is the stamp when it became independent, the first one on the top. So the way they do it, they overprinted the British Guiana stamps. They overprinted with Guyana independence 1966. So that's the year. So they use the stamps that they already have. Then the second stamp is exactly the same year, and they just first was a fish, this huge fish called arapaima, the first one. They said this is one of the biggest fish in fresh waters, and it could be up to 400 pounds, so it's huge. And then the second one is the same, got a toucan. Guyana has part of the Amazon, a small part, but so it has all diverse birds and plants and flowers, all of this. And the third stamp, they actually issued the same year their own stamp in Guyana, right? So they put independence and they put a year, and this is the part of the map of South America. Pretty small, but it's Venezuela, Brazil, then you see Guyana, like a yellow, and then it's Suriname, very small, and then I don't think it's printed, but it's French Guyana. Now, the last stamp, that's actually the reason I was showing this presentation. This week, I read about this 1 cent Magenta, and I was start reading. I said, oh, this is very interesting. I know most of you probably know a lot of the story, but maybe there are some details that you might not know. Okay, so I'm going to go use that as an excuse to show you this stamp that was printed by Guyana in 1967. This is like a stamp on the stamp, right? So we see that frequently. So they printed 25 cents when they printed in 67, Guyana, South America. And they wrote in here the world's rarest stamp. Why is that the rarest stamp? So before going into detail about the stamps, right? So in 1856, in British Guiana, they were waiting for a shipment of stamps, and it didn't arrive. So the postmaster of British Guiana went to a newspaper in Georgetown, the Gazette, and they asked them to print provisional stamps, so a small number, enough to keep going until they get the shipment. So they print some 1 cent stamps and a couple of 4 cent stamps. The 1 cent stamp, at one point, they disappear because there weren't that many, and was not in any catalog at the time, right? So 20 years later, after 1956, 20 years later, a boy, a 12-year-old boy, living actually in British Guiana, discovered the stamping collection. Because there was no price in the catalog, so he sold the stamp for 6 shillings to a kind of a dealer, collector dealer, and then after that changed hands many times. So I think in total around a dozen times until now, maybe a little more, but roughly a dozen times. This is the only stamp of British Guiana of 1 cent that still exists. Now, so the newspaper, the Gazette, so printed this stamp. So what they did, they put British Guiana on top and the bottom, the value 1 cent, postage. Then there was a black border going in the stamp. Then in Latin, they had this motto, but it's actually not just from this stamp. they are printed in many British Guiana stamps. That's we give and expect to receive, right? So we give something and we expect to receive something in return. So that's the motto of the stamp. And inside of the stamp, you see a ship, a sailing ship, right? Now, of course, you notice already the background, right? It's magenta. That's the reason it's 1 cent magenta.
The color is not correct, really. Anyone who's seen the real stamp knows this is more red than magenta.
Right. Then you see the name of that county where was stamped is Demerara. That's a county in British Guiana. Now you see the date in here. This is April 4/18. This is a 5. I cannot really tell where is the 6, but they are saying there is a 6 in here. So I'm not 100% sure. So it's 1856. Now, then in here, at that time, when the newspaper printed the stamps, the postmaster wasn't really sure that they could be forgeries on the stamp. So he requested the clerks in the post office, every stamp has to be initialized by the clerk. So this is supposed to be an E, a D. This is a kind of backward D, but it's a D, and a W. Okay, I think the name was Edmund D. White, I think it was his name. And so now, so this is what so far you see in the stamp, but there is actually more. But before going into, because in the back of the stamp, there is more, but we're going to talk a little bit later on that, okay? As I said, it got from around a dozen owners, and so the price went higher, as you know, is actually a very high price. So one of the latest owners was John DuPont. So he was the heir of the DuPont empire, and he bought a stamp for a little less than $1 million, and that was 1980, I think. 1980, he bought a stamp for that. But then he got into problems. He shot a wrestler, and he went to jail, and he never saw the stamp again. And then he died in jail. And then after he died, his family or his estate put the stamp for auction. And in 1914, there was this shoe tycoon, you know, a very famous name, Stuart Weissman. He bought the stamp for 9.4 million, you know, so it went a lot higher. You know, it previously was like $1 million, went to 9.4 million. Then in 2021, he put this stamp for sale, and other things. Not just this stamp, but this was the main thing he put in auction at Sotheby's in New York. And then was acquired by Stanley Gibbons Company, and they only paid $8.3 million. So the price went lower. And the idea of Stanley Gibbons buying the stamp is actually not just be the only owners. They have an idea. I don't know if they actually took place yet, but they wanted to sell like stacks of the stamp, so people can own parts of the stamp. I'm not sure if that already is taking place or not, but that's the idea. In the back of the stamp, what happened? So some of the owners of the stamp, they put their initials or some type of sign in there to show that they own the stamp. No everybody, but some of them. Like John DuPont put his initials. Then Stuart Weissman, actually he drew a stiletto, you know, like a shoe, a high shoe, and after that he put his initials. He did that on pencil, but it is on the stamp, right? So if you are able to see the back of the stamp, I'm sure in the internet they have hundreds of pictures of that. You can see it. Some people are saying this is the ugliest stamp in the world. I mean, so this is a matter of opinion, right? And I was seeing a couple of people discussing that, and they say, well, it's really more the history, more what it represents. And so for some people, they think this is a beautiful stamp. Some people, they think it's not. Now, in this picture, you actually could see it better. When you see the original, it's not as clear actually as this. So that could be the reason to that, you cannot really appreciate it as much. Now, there are other theories. In the 20s, I don't remember who is the owner, but he actually was offered another stamp of this. So there was a second stamp, and he bought the stamp and then he destroyed it. So only could be one stamp. But who knows if that's true or not? It could be just a false theory. Yeah, and like that, there are other stories around this stamp. I knew the stamp, but I didn't know the details before than this week. So this week I just got really interested in this stamp, and so I was looking into this. Okay.
This stamp, of course, is a newspaper stamp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? It's
Yeah.
listed
So that was the idea. The idea was the 1 cent stamp was supposed to be for the newspaper, and the 4 cent stamps. There was 2 4-cent stamps that were for letters. Yeah, as a matter of fact, so the 4-cent stamps, there are 2. There is the 4-cent magenta 2 and the 4-cent blue. And another theory said the 4-cent magenta actually they created. Actually, there was another stamp that appeared. They say, hey, this is the 1-cent magenta, and the experts after they studied that, they said, no, this is a forgery. This is actually the 4-cent magenta that somebody have changed it.
There are other stamps that are supposedly unique.
Mm-hmm.
None of them has the same price. I was just recently looking at the Sweden 1A, the 3-cent orange, which catalogs is at $3 billion.
Wow.
Any remarks saying that it's unique. They do have a remark for this one that it's unique. There's also a feudatory state called Tonk. And I believe there's only one example of that stamp, and it's not priced in Scott.
Yeah.
I think there are a few more, but I can't remember what the other ones are at the moment.
So all the initial stamps, so they are overprinted, with Guyana independence. So they use the British Guiana stamps, and now you're going to see that the same stamps, they appear again. So the only way I have realized that you can tell the difference is just by the watermark, really, because besides that, they really look the same. You only have to go to the watermark. There are some more of that overprinted stamps. And then the same year, they actually, in Guyana, they printed their own stamps here. And now the next year, they printed that stamp on a stamp. So one for 5 cents and one for 25 cents. And then they have other things, cricket and parrots and, all of these exotic animals and fishes. Now, this looks more like an Indian, and I guess in Guyana there is a big Indian immigration. I'm not exactly sure when that happened, but there is a big Indian population. And they have some, this is Dali's painting, The Last Supper. And this was the first minister when they got that, the prime minister, when they got independence from the United Kingdom. That's name is Burham. And then more flowers. some paintings, and this is, who is this? Rubens paintings. And the map and Guyana, you see it very small in here. And some fruits. And some coins in here. And this is the prime minister.
It's Chetty Jagan, I think.
And some butterflies. And then you see some overprinted stamps. The value change. Now, this I don't understand why they did this. These stamps in here. So this is 82, right? So they use that, you know, they already stopped using that British Guiana stamps. And I guess I have to assume that that's the year that Prince William was born. They use the British Guiana stamps. I don't know. I thought that maybe goes better with having the Queen in there. Not sure. Then some more overprinted and the flowers. And this is just some souvenir sheets. Now, after here, now these are some errors in the stamps, right? So let's look at the one on the left first. You see Guyana independence and the year in all of them. But if you look this one on that top right, you don't see Guyana in here. You see the year, independence, and the year again. Only happen in that one. Same thing in here, right? It's just different value, but the problem happened the same.
Are those common or are those rare?
No, they are not rare. It seems like there are a lot. And this is just a booklet. And now these ones, I think this is similar, but just different value of a stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is at the bottom in here. It's just, now this is, what is this? Inverted, the overprinted in
Oh,
here.
yeah.
This one's on the left, inverted. And this one is also inverted, the overprint. Now what happened here? This one, see the year in here is like in the center, and this one is actually more shifted to the right. And then some more souvenir sheets, the same stamp. And I think this is the last, and this is the last stamp, more souvenir sheets. Okay, that's my presentation. Thank you.